I used to be a militant men's rights activist. And in this video, I'm going to kind of go back and revisit the old days. But this was me. When I was 21, I lived in London, I went to film school, and at night I would go out and I would do that. I would go out and I would graffiti Men's Rights London. On one hand, it was fun as hell. Like, there was such a punk rock kind of rebellious feeling to like going out at midnight with some spray paint and like tagging the walls of a major city and then like seeing it in the paper the next day. And I would go to that place the next morning wherever I tagged, and there'd be like 20 people standing around it, like taking pictures and everything. Like, it was a lot of fun. I was at Ealing Broadway Station where I lived, and I would go to Westminster on the District Line, which anyone in London knows the District Line is pretty much the slowest way to go anywhere, but it gave me time to get like my spray cans ready and everything ready. And I would get out and I would walk all across Southwark, across South Bank, and I would tag the place up. I mean, I tagged up the Globe, I tagged up the Millennium Bridge, pretty much all over. And then the next morning, I would walk that same path and I would see all my tags everywhere, and there were crowds all over the place. And it felt like, damn, I'm really actually kind of doing something. Like, I'm actually kind of like putting something out there that people are seeing. So on one hand, it was like a lot of fun to do at night, and I'd like have a couple drinks and I would go out and kind of do it. But then the next morning I would see, I'm actually kind of making a difference here. Like, I'm actually making people think and react. On the other hand, I also had a sense of the seriousness and almost the danger of what I was doing. Like, if I was caught, there were a lot of people who would have had a very negative and hostile reaction to what I was doing. And today, doing what I was doing back then would almost be considered hate speech and something I could actually get in a lot of trouble for. It kind of felt like this was 2015-ish, and it feels like I was sort of on the beginning of what was a very hostile and divided time, which now 6 years later we see is in fact the case. But those pictures, I think, and if you Google image Men's Rights London, those are the top results. So I almost feel like I kind of did something historical in those pictures. And I was going out at like midnight and like hanging over the Millennium Bridge to get that tag. And it's the kind of memory that I'm going to have forever. And honestly, no matter what happens, I'll always be proud that I did that. But yeah, so let's look at some of the articles. This is one of them from Days Digital. You see, men's rights graffiti spotted around London. It's been sighted at Waterloo, Blackfriars, and Southwark. And people aren't impressed. Well, some people were. So then it goes on. If you found yourself strolling through an underpass in central London lately, you might have noticed some new public art that's appeared over the last couple of weeks. Someone, presumably with a fedora brim pulled down under their brow, has taken to the streets of Waterloo, Blackfriars Bridge, and Southwark to spray a series of ominous orange messages, mostly Men's Rights London 5-8-15, and some stuff about feminists supporting abuse. Now, this is the picture they're talking about feminists supporting abuse, and if you think like that's kind of unfair to say, yeah, I wouldn't phrase it that way now about feminists supporting abuse, but at the same time, I did a video less than a year ago about feminist groups in the UK basically advocating to legalize domestic violence against men. So I don't think my 21-year-old self was that far off from the truth. So this one was pretty funny. I went to King's College in London. They're a pretty famous, very progressive university. And we say, men's rights graffiti on campus causes uproar. Provocative graffiti about men's rights has sparked outrage on campus. And the article says, and this is hilarious because this was a pure feminist written article. The apostrophe lacking doodle, which reads Men's Rights London Student, was actually London Student Union, and they erased the union, was spotted in the King's Building unisex toilets by theology student Nick Jovik-Saz. And then the feminists, of course, had a comment about it. Members of King's Intersectional Feminist Society have expressed their annoyance, with some saying they feel threatened by the note. First of all, King's College has a really good cafeteria. Like their lunch buffet is awesome. But I walked around campus for a few days and I talked to a few students about what I was doing and if they agreed or not. And I had so many guys saying, I agree with what you're doing, but I feel too afraid to say anything. And the reaction from the feminists, which you're going to see here, so much proves my point. The way they feel threatened by me writing something on the wall by just saying men's rights, and they felt that was threatening, really says kind of a lot. And I've linked all the articles, everything you see here in the description below. But just Google Men's Rights London. Like Google Men's Rights London, and then Google Image Men's Rights London. And this will pop up. But this is what they said. Nick spotted the writing in one of the unisex cubicles in the King's building on the second floor. He expressed his initial reaction of shock and disgust to us. He said, "It was really shocking to see it on campus. Even as a man, it's chilling to think that there are people so strongly opposed to women's rights at our university." Yeah, chilling. Men's rights. Chilling. And of course, from that, he can infer that I'm so strongly opposed to women's rights because I write men's rights? So writing men's rights means I'm so strongly opposed to women. But hang on, you're the one coming out criticizing someone for writing men's rights. What does that mean? All I did was write men's rights, and you said you were disgusted and shocked by that. That was chilling. I never wrote anything against women's rights. I never said anything bad about women. All I said was men's rights. And you said that's shocking and disgusting and chilling. But how? What's chilling about that? Why are you disgusted by that? Why does that mean I'm against women's rights? I don't get it. And of course, the feminist statement. Meanwhile, Sophie, IFemSoc president, told the Tab, "I find MRA groups quite amusing, really, because they show a fundamental lack of understanding of what feminism, intersectional feminism in particular, truly is. They spread false propaganda about the movement, and some of their claims are ridiculous to say the least. Feminism is about the destruction of the patriarchy, not a desire to eradicate those who self-identify as men." But the hypocrisy here is that Sophie is spending no time at all trying to understand what the MRAs actually believe. What is the men's rights movement actually about? Like she's just immediately attacking it and dismissing it and laughing at it, saying, "Oh, it's so amusing how MRAs don't understand what feminism is about." But maybe Sophie could spend some time trying to figure out what are MRAs actually about. What do we actually believe? And this is why so many young men are being drawn to things like the men's rights movement. Because when they try and speak out about things, the first reaction they get is just being laughed at or dismissed or mocked. Now, here's the best part, and I wish I'd seen it because I would have totally gone and done it. Sophie even went so far as to invite the perpetrators, notice the word perpetrators, along to one of IFemSoc's events. She said, "I would encourage the MRA group that is clearly shulking around campus to come to one of our events." 100% yes. And I know it's 6 years later, but I will go to any feminist event who wants to debate an MRA. Or I'll go on CNN or Fox or BBC or Newsmax or the Democratic National Convention. I don't care who it is. Anybody that wants to have me on, I will talk about this. Okay? And I will debate anybody at any time on any stage. Because this is the kind of thing that young people, like when you're 21 and you feel about something strongly, this is the kind of stuff that young people do. And I remember doing it. It just felt really cool to actually go out and do something. And yeah, it was also kind of about just having a good time and having a few drinks and doing something kind of crazy. But at the same time, I remember when I would go out those mornings after, and I would walk by the places that I tagged, and I would see people looking at it, and I would see people reading what I wrote. I could tell that there were a lot of people there who agreed, and it's something they wouldn't say out loud to their friends or family or coworkers because they'd be afraid to. But I could tell that when they read it, they agreed with it. And there was a feeling of, you know what? Other people feel this way too. And there's a certain power in seeing something and knowing someone else feels the same way that I do. It's like a visible symbol that you're not alone, and your ideas, they're not crazy, it's not hate speech. And even if people in the media or anywhere else tells you you're wrong, doesn't necessarily mean that you are. So anyway, I linked everything down below. It was a lot of fun.